I've had a fascination with Spider-Man since I was a kid, and he was my favorite comic book character, still is. And I always found it interesting that his eyes were Indian in shape. When I went to India for the first time, I saw women wearing these brightly colored saris of red and blue, and it looked like they were superheroes, you know, walking among ordinary people. Professional artist, and I'm a New York City public school, high school art teacher, and I have been for the past 12 years. So I was born in New Jersey. My father's from India, my mother's Russian and Polish, and they met at NYU. He was studying philosophy, my mother was studying education. And so I'm the product of these two cultures. I was born on the day that the Dalai Lama and the Pope first met in the Vatican. And my mother saved a clipping from the New York Times, seemed to symbolize the birth of transcendental fusion, which is my unique style of art. That means a coming together and rising above of various different cultures, religions, philosophies. My mother was a Catholic nun for 13 years before she met my father, and my grandfather was an Anglican bishop in India, my father's father. I think probably my love for different clothes and outlandish fashions probably stemmed from him. My father emigrated here when he was 18. The first time he returned to India was when I was in high school and I was 18. It was 35 years later for him. And only because I showed interest in Indian art and culture did he return for the first time with me. As an American growing up here, I was inundated with images of pop culture, and I really think that these are our modern archetypes. So Spider-Man, Batman, Barbie doll, any of these images fill the minds and the imaginations of the modern person. Definitely there's a correlation between my artwork and the way that I dress, because it's just an extension of myself. The work itself has a lot to do with traveling, and the clothes that I wear are a reflection of that process. This is a traditional Indian jacket called a sherwani. It's a Muslim jacket that was worn by the Nawabs, or kings of Persia. I've had this hand embroidered as a Spider-Man sherwani. The process is called embroidery with jali thread that's dipped in real silver. This is a suit I had made in Thailand. It's made of Thai raw silk on the outside and polished silk on the inside. And I had it specially custom at Royal Tailors in Bangkok. And it has my name written in it. And the shoes are called jutis. Juti means shoe in Hindi. And I had these specially made and designed in Delhi. 3 necklaces are not just necklaces, they're rosaries or malas. And they're made from human bone. They have a specific number of beads which you count on when you're meditating. This is my grandfather's engagement ring that was given to him by my grandmother in 1939. Whenever I see an image that I like, I know it's right. It's just a matter of intuition. It's not based on whether I think it's going to be in fashion or whether other people are going to like it. You know, a lot of people ask me, I wear all these skulls, he must be a very morbid person. But it's not that. It's to remind myself that death is an eventuality. My paintings are very linear in essence because they are derived from a structure of Eastern picture making rather than primarily Western picture making. And the difference between these two things, to sum up in a nutshell, is that Western picture making since the Renaissance is akin to looking in the rear view mirror of a car that's traveling down a highway. So rather than a window into the past or a window into a three-dimensional world, you're confronted with a mirror. And that mirror is flat and it reflects the viewer and the space around him or her. Primary sources of inspiration are Tibetan art, Indian miniature painting, Persian miniature painting, Northern European pre-Renaissance, Bosch, Bruegel, and American youth culture. When you're making art, time just melts. Sometimes I'm in class and I'm teaching in its 8th or 9th period and the bell rings and there are students roaming about in the hallways and going to their next class or leaving the school. My students may be sitting there for 5 or 7 minutes after the bells ring, and one of them will look up and say, "Hey, mister, it's already time to go." And I'll say, "Well, when you're painting, time melts." Painting here is an older one of mine. I made it before I did the suit, and it's called Spider Mandala. It's basically a representation of myself and who is now my ex-wife, and it chronicles the trip between 4 countries. You have America, India, Thailand, and France. People that search after the latest trend, that follow some designer because what they have is cool, or somebody else because they think they're they've got the answers. I think you need to find the answers in and of yourself. You asked me if I'm afraid of death, and I can't be, because it can come at any time. And if you live without the fear of death, then you're free of it. It may sound like a lot of mumbo jumbo to people. I think that there's something greater than just getting up every day, going to a job, coming home, living your life, watching television, going to sleep, doing the same thing repetitively. You have to really question the meaning of life and the experience of life. My father, being as paradoxical as he is, named me Forever. My middle name is Forever, but he has a penchant for saying, "Rajiv, nothing lasts forever." I was kind of in between at all times. So when I grew up here, I wasn't really seen as American enough. When I went to India, I wasn't Indian enough. It's been a practice or a course of way of being to be in that in-between state. Tibetan philosophy is called the Bardo state, the state of becoming. And I like to always be in a state of becoming, not always the same thing, but constantly changing and evolving. And I think that's a big part of my philosophy, and it's part of the philosophy of an artist. You have to constantly reinvent yourself and see yourself in different ways, or show yourself to people